Hello, welcome to the channel. So over the last few months I published several videos about getting the Power Wagon ready for some off-road trips. Now I'm currently planning to do a off-road trip pretty soon here as a sort of a shakeout test to kind of test out the suspension system and the other systems as well, just to see if I need to make any changes. Now, I've been doing off-road camping trips for many years, and the personal experiences that I've had have helped to influence the setup that I use and the equipment that I bring, but also the equipment that I think is better left at home. Now, as I gear up the Power Wagon and camper, I thought it'd be an interesting idea to do a quick recap of some of the upgrades that I've made with respect to off-road capabilities, but also talk about the equipment that I'm bringing so that I can avoid some of the common pitfalls of taking a vehicle off-road. Okay, let's start with the vehicle. Now, the Power Wagon is a pretty capable off-road vehicle right out of the box, but I've made some upgrades which make it a little bit safer and a little more effective off-road. So up front here, I've installed a front-facing camera, LED fog lamps, these awesome rigid off-road lights, and a synthetic winch line. Now, to improve visibility here on the back side of the camper, I replaced the stock reverse lamps with some really bright LED bulbs. And although the reverse lights are now partially blocked when I install the camper, they are complemented by these pre-existing LED bulbs here on the back of the camper. I also installed a backup camera right up here above the door. So now when I put the truck in reverse, I have plenty of light thrown back here, and I have a nice clear view on my head unit. Now, to reduce the amount of time that I spend deflating and reinflating my tires off-road, I've bought these trailhead deflators here and a high output compressor from ARB. Now, back here, in order to support the weight of the camper, I've installed some helper springs from Super Springs. I've also installed some Fox shocks on all four corners, as well as a Fox steering stabilizer up front. In order to gain a bit more power to make it up the tall hills, I've installed an S&B cold air intake kit. And over there I have a brand new 12-volt AGM battery. Now, out in the sand dune areas, it's required to have an ATV safety flag. Now, I've modified this one to accept a CB antenna quick disconnect. Then I have the associated mount over here on the truck. This makes it really easy to install and uninstall the flag. Okay, so let's talk about safety equipment that could quite literally save your life. Now, because cell phone coverage is at best spotty and at worst non-existent off the beaten path, I bring this Rescue Link satellite-based personal locator beacon with me. It's the most important thing that I bring besides food and water, and I take it with me on all my recreational trips. Now, the way this works is if I were to have an emergency situation, I could activate this and it would forward off my GPS coordinates to a search and rescue team so they could come and save me. And I keep it inside this little go bag here, which has survival equipment that I can grab in a hurry if I need to. Now, regarding communications, I also typically bring a handheld GMRS radio like this one here, and that's because these are pretty commonly used in a recreational setting, and you may be able to reach people in the vicinity. Now, this one doesn't have quite the reach that a vehicle-mounted unit would, but you know, it's small and lightweight, and it's easy to pack, and it's pretty good as an emergency backup. Now, getting lost in a remote location could lead to a life or death situation, so you really do need to have reliable navigation, and once again, you can't always rely on the cell phone network. So regardless if you're using a cell phone based application or a standalone unit like this Garmin, or even the head unit in your vehicle, you need to have a satellite based system like the GPS system here in North America. And you also want to have offline maps so that, again, you're not dependent on the cell phone coverage in order to get maps on your device. Now, there's another feature which I highly recommend, which is a breadcrumb or tracking feature, which allows you to easily backtrack the way you came in case you get turned around and need to head back out the way you came. Now, I also highly recommend that you have paper-based maps of the location that you're going to be visiting. Now, in terms of fire safety, back here I have the typical dry chemical fire extinguisher that came with the camper, but I also have one of these next to the stove. This is called a sachet from Fire XO, and the way this works is if you have a pan fire, you can just drop this right into the pan and it'll pretty much smother the fire instantly. Now, the advantage of using one of these, besides the convenience, is the fact that if you're using a dry chem under pressure, it has a tendency to potentially spread the fire. If you have a grease fire or something like that, it can actually spread the burning grease around the camper and actually burn it down quicker. So this doesn't have the potential for doing that, and it also doesn't leave any dry chemical mess. Now behind me here inside the console, I have one of these. This is called a element fire extinguisher. This is a pretty interesting device. Unlike a dry chemical under pressure, it actually uses a chemical reaction in order to put out a fire. The way you use it is there's a little striker up here, and you actually set off that chemical reaction using a striker just like you would on a road flare. Now, in my opinion, these are not quite as easy to use as a traditional fire extinguisher, but they do have some advantages. First of all, they run for a lot longer time. They have an indefinite shelf life. They're not going to make a mess like a dry chemical would, and they're so small and light you can pretty much mount them anywhere. I think these rear storage boxes and the rear floor of the Ram are really awesome. Inside here I have some roadside emergency type of equipment. I have a flashlight that has a lantern and a flashing red light and a magnet. And here I have a pretty well stocked first aid kit. You can see how thick that is. Just some gloves, and this is kind of an emergency fuel pouch. So it takes the place of a gas can basically, but it's much more compact. And then in here I have a siphoning pump just in case, and I have a couple of different types of flares. This is an electronic flare that uses batteries. And then I have two standard flares in the bottom there. And over here on the passenger side of the vehicle, I store emergency and survival type of gear. So this here is just a typical tarp. It could be used for an emergency shelter or to keep your gear dry from rain or just to sit on at the beach. And I have a few of these hand warmers here and a few of these rain ponchos. And then this is an emergency tent. And then inside of here, I have a candle lantern. Now this doesn't put out a ton of heat, but you know, if I have to sleep inside the cab here, it's probably enough heat to keep this vehicle warm. And I have a few of the candles, extra candles, and a lighter and some matches in here as well. And then in here, this is a sort of a survival kit. This is just a reused coffee can, but it's a metal can. So the idea here is I could use it as an emergency pot if I need to cook food or to boil water. And then inside it's stacked pretty full with a bunch of emergency gear. So I have an emergency blanket in here, some aluminum foil, a whistle, compass, mirror, storm matches, emergency candle, a water filter, and various ways to start a fire, including wax fire starters. So all this gear here always stays into the truck, regardless of whether or not I have the camper on or whether or not I'm off-road or camping. Just in case I ever have an emergency, it'll be in the truck. Now up here is a spare bottle of water, and just like the emergency equipment, it stays in the truck at all times. The idea with this is that if I have an emergency and I need to leave the vehicle in a hurry, I can just grab this bottle here and I have water. Now it's in a stainless steel vacuum insulated bottle, which helps to prolong the amount of time it takes for the water to freeze if the temperatures get low. And I also have it sealed off here with some self-fusing silicone tape just to help keep the water a little fresher, a little longer. And then in here, I just have a few straps of various designs and some bungee cords because you never know when you might need to secure some gear or to fix something. Over here I keep my repair kit. Now the contents of this kit were defined based on issues that I've had in the past on previous trips with previous vehicles. Now I have first off, means for fixing electrical issues. So I have just a standard multimeter, some spare leads here, some extra wire, some smaller wire, and various connectors and things like this. Then in here is just a utility knife. I keep it wrapped up in paper just to protect it from water or moisture. This is a carbon steel knife, so I don't want it rusting in here. Then I have a couple of different types of cordage. This is paracord, and this is actually a laundry line to hang up clothes. So you could, hang up your wet clothes or build an emergency shelter. A lot of different things you could use with cordage, of course. I have just some Teflon tape that goes along with the air compressor fittings, and some WD-40 lubricant. And then in here, this is my little repair bag. So I have various different types of tape. I have self-fusing silicone tape. I have two different sizes of Gorilla Tape and some electrical tape here. Then I have some jute twine and some baling wire. And over here I have a little sewing kit. And in here I have a couple of different types of epoxy. This is putty epoxy, so this is called a steel stick, and you basically rub it in your fingers to produce sort of a putty. It's very strong. And then this here is a similar sort of a product, but it's called water weld, so it's actually designed for boats or anything that's going to be in contact with water. Then I have a few little tubes here of super glue. Here's a tire repair kit. And just a standard strap and some zip ties. Then inside of this bag here, I have a packable down coat, winter coat, a wool hat, and some winter gloves. And then inside of here is a packable down blanket. So the idea with this, again, if I need to sleep inside the cab, I have a blanket. I could actually use this as a pillow. Or if I'm out and it gets colder than normal, or I forgot my jacket or coat, I can use this as a spare. Okay, so let's talk about tools. So underneath the passenger seat here, I have your standard socket set. So this is a 3/8 and 1/4 inch drive socket set. It's a pretty good quality set. And best of all, it comes with this little box that fits right up underneath the seat. Okay, so we're back over the driver's side of the truck, and underneath the driver's seat, I found this bag, which just fits perfectly underneath the seat in order to fit my hand tools. Now, there's nothing too special in here. I do have a razor knife, some thread lock, and some vice grips down there, a little hacksaw. But otherwise, it's just pretty much straightforward tools that I think I may need. Now, I did make sure that I had any specialty tools like these torque star bits here. And this is a little bit unique, I guess. This is just an aluminum bar, which I've shaped here on the end. This fits over my tire iron, my tire tool, to allow me to get a little bit more leverage in order to break free any overly torqued lug nuts that are on the wheels. I'll also be carrying along this. This is a battery jump starter. And this is just a small hatchet. This is not the greatest hatchet I own, but it works pretty well for splitting small wood and things like that. It'll also double as a hammer, so you can use the back side of the hatchet as a hammer if you need it. So it basically doubles as two tools. Then inside this little sheath, this little carrying case here I made myself, as well as this sheath. But inside here is a file and a sharpener for the hatchet. And then this is my silky katana boy. This is a handsaw, pretty large folding saw. And you can cut pretty large trees with this. In fact, I downed a tree on my property that was a pretty good size a couple of years ago. So it works out pretty well. And the reason for carrying this along is in case I come across any trees that are blocking the trail, I can hopefully take care of them with this. Now, these will just be sitting underneath the seat for now. I don't have a permanent mounting solution for these yet, but that's coming pretty soon. Now, I don't carry so many tools where I could resolve every potential problem that I may encounter, because extra tools add unnecessary weight. Now, this is a pretty low mileage vehicle, and in my estimation, I expect it to be pretty reliable, and it's a durable vehicle as well. And the overall size and weight of this vehicle is going to limit me to really easy to moderate terrain. So as long as I take it easy and drive carefully and slowly, I'm not really expecting to break anything major that would require any specialty tools. The idea is just to carry the basics so that I can accommodate any of the common problems that I may encounter. Now, you never know when a heavy rain or snowstorm may cause the need for recovery. So I keep some basic recovery gear in all my vehicles at all times. And in the truck here, I have this 4-inch by 30-foot nylon recovery strap. It's made by U.S. Cargo Control, has a 32,000 pound minimum braking strength, and it's made in the USA. I also keep a couple of these soft shackles in here. These are made of a 7/16-inch Dyneema rope, and I made these myself. And I also carry this little shovel here. It's not a very big shovel, but it does the job. I have one just like it in my Jeep, and it's been used quite a bit. And it just has a nice shape to it, and I like this little handle, and it's small enough to stow pretty easily underneath the seat. Now, if I need to lift an axle or change a tire, I do have a jack in the truck. It's underneath the passenger seat. It's the original jack that came with the truck. It's just a scissors jack. I'm not going to get it out because it's a bit of a pain to pull out, but you just have to trust me that it's there, and it does work. Now, when I know I'm going to be going off-road, I bring additional gear as well. So in this bag here, I have a pulley ring made by All Gear, as well as another one of my soft shackles, a spare soft shackle, and this is a winch extension line. It's a Dyneema ropes that could also be used as a tow rope, and this is something I also made myself. And then here I have a tree strap, also by US Cargo Control. Now I typically bring these as well. This is a pair of low profile traction devices. I've never actually used these, but I bring them along because they don't really weigh much, and I think if I did need them, they would come in pretty handy, and they fit pretty easily under the seat. Now, a lot of times when I bring one of my Jeeps off-road, I'll take one or both of these devices here. This is a come along or a hand winch, and this is a high lift jack. Now, you can winch a vehicle with both of these devices, and they come in pretty handy if you have a front-mounted winch, but need to winch the vehicle backwards or from the side somehow. Now, the problem here is weight capacity. So the truck and camper combo is going to weigh about 9,500 pounds once I get passengers and equipment inside. The hand winch here, it tops out at 4,000 pounds, and the high lift jack, it tops out at about 5,000 pounds. So even with a pulley ring, these devices here are going to be of limited use and going to be pretty much at their max capacity. Now, the other problem here is that I don't have a lot of jacking points on the Power Wagon. There are a couple of areas there on the front, near the front bumper, which I could use a high lift jack, but that's about it. So due to the added weight of these devices, they're probably going to stay at home for the most part in order to gain a little bit of weight savings. Okay, so that pretty well summarizes the setup and the equipment that I'll be bringing when I take this truck camper off-road. You know, my general philosophy is that added weight actually impedes both on-road and off-road performance, and it increases your chances of breaking parts. So I try to take only those things which I find critical for the light to moderate off-roading that I'm planning to do with this vehicle. Also, I tried to keep this video to a high-level overview. So if there's anything that you'd really want to see more details on, let me know down in the comments. And the next video that you see will be hopefully this truck and camper going off-road. So if you're interested in seeing that, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. And I'll see you next time.